Hello, my name is Jennifer Wilson, and I'm your guide here at Simple Scrapper. I love to create in all kinds of ways, but one of my favorite things to do these days is to tell longer stories. I'm your guide here at Simple Scrapper, and I've been doing this since 2008, and we really help you find your unique way in this hobby so that it fills you up and fits your life. And hopefully today I can share some strategies to help you get a little bit more of your story onto the page if that's something that you've been working with and uh, developing your skills in over time. So I'm kicking things off here. We had a few technical issues with just some examples from recent pages that I've made. And this is one of my favorites. This is a page that I had wanted to make for so long. And is about the story of when I met my husband, which is this tiny photo down here that it's so grainy and blurry because it was taken on a BlackBerry a million years ago. And I told him I could never move to Illinois. And in that same day, he called my bluff. And then just 2 years later, I, of course, moved to Illinois. And now I've lived here for 13 years since. And I wrote this story about several different those never say never moments in my life. I also remember driving through Champaign and saying, oh, I could never live in a place like that when I was looking at colleges. And then even when we were looking for houses a couple years earlier, I had driven by the neighborhood we're in now, and I said, oh, I could never live in a neighborhood like that. And of course, we love it here. And so there's so many of these moments, and I just really wanted to just document all of those. The pictures here are not nearly as important as kind of the title and the story. And so many of these pages right now start with me just sitting down at the computer and typing. And I am loving that process because I can edit as I go. I can print it out. I don't have to worry about handwriting. These in 8.5 by 11, I don't have to worry about sizing. Today I'm going to be working on 12 by 12 pages, but with those I'll share some tricks to help you with that if you don't have a large format printer. But you know what this does for me is that when I can type my journaling, I print it out, I make my page, and then the page is done. There's not, oh, now I have to write my journaling. By starting there, the rest of the page just kind of flows out of it. And it's just something that I love doing. Here's another example of a longer journaling. This was about an opportunity where I had in college to not quite meet Al Gore, but to go to an event in very close proximity at an elementary school as the news editor for our college paper. And then I did another little story here about my husband and I, well, my now husband, going to Niagara Falls in 2007. And I had gone there in 1987 with my parents. And just kind of that journey in between and how it's just, you know, one of those special romantic places. This one has a little bit of shorter journaling, but in little blocks. I love experimenting with kind of typing into shapes. It requires a little bit more on the Photoshop side, but you know, even though these are little, in some they add up to quite a bit of story on the page. And then this is the last example I'll share from this album, but this one is a fun way of getting your pocket pages, your pocket page products onto a layout if you're not doing pocket pages. And then I kind of created a pseudo journaling card over here by just changing the background color of my box and then typing inside of that. And where to go? And then of course, we didn't want to miss out on the layout that you saw in the example here. And this one is handwritten journaling, but it's a little bit longer than, than just, the little blurb, the little square of journaling or the little line of journaling. Every time I see a little tiny tag and said, you journal here, and I'm like, ooh, that's not going to be enough space for me. I don't tend to pre-write my journaling, so I just want to have enough space that I can get to a point by the time my brain, finishes thinking about it. Usually the first sentence is an introduction, and then I really start getting into the meat of things. But it's really important to me to incorporate story on my pages because that's really the part that I most want to remember. The things I'm going to forget are all those connections. I'll be able to remember we went to Oregon. It was pretty. We had a beautiful drive, but I want to know what that meant to me back then in that particular moment. All right. I think that was all I wanted to share from this one. Oh, here's another good example here of where this one ended up being a very photo-focused page. I took 3 photos at 8 a.m. One morning of myself, my daughter, and my husband, and this is really about where we are in pandemic life at 8 a.m., and then did this column of long journaling on the page. And I think one of the other things that I wanted to emphasize is that, you know, if you looked at this one, I could have probably drawn some more lines, but I definitely tell even longer stories when I'm typing. And I think that's just from the fact of we type all the time. We are on our devices, we are on computers and phones, we type regularly, and it's actually easier often to get those words out of our heads and onto paper when we type them because it's so natural today. All right, let's dig into these sketches. All right. Everything going well? Are we square? I just want to make sure. Thank you for all the great comments. Happy frolicking photo. Yes, I tried to do that like jump in the air thing and it was very comical. Okay, so let's talk about these 2 sketches. Our featured artist, we have featured artists every single month at Simple Scrapper, and every other month they inspire the sketches and templates that our creative team works with and that we give to our members inside of our membership. We have a library of nearly 600 sketches and templates now. It's kind of crazy. We've been doing it since the beginning of 2011. Actually, I think there were 3 in the end of 2010. And our library just has such a diversity of styles, both single page and double page layouts, even layouts of 9 by 12, 8.5 by 11, 6 by 8, huge range, as well as even pocket pages. Just a wealth of options, including so many that have longer journaling blocks. One thing we look for when we're selecting our featured artists is, do they put a little bit of story on the page? And because we know that that's a value that it's important to us as a company and that we want to help you cultivate in your own scrapbooking journey as well. So these particular sketches were inspired by Dawn Farias. She's actually a digital scrapbooker, and we were so honored to have her as our featured artist because she does these amazing pages that include a lot of words. Now, I think as a digital scrapbooker, as I mentioned with the typing, it often is even easier to control where your text is going and get more of that story on the page. But I really wanted to showcase today how we can do that in a paper layout and really get a lot of text on the page. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this one, but we're gonna go through the whole process. And then with this one over here, I think it's hiding underneath. We've got a similar thing. We got things all ready to go, and I'm going to walk you through step by step both of the pages. All right. Oh, great question, Deborah, and thank you, Natalie, for asking. Difference between a template and a sketch. So, you know, generally I consider a sketch just a visual image that you can use as a reference. A sketch can really be used by a digital or a paper scrapbooker, but you're not starting with a piece. You're just starting with the visual and then using that as inspiration. Whereas a template, really, you are starting with the file and manipulating the file to use it as your own. And we'll see, actually, in this example, I ended up using this layer from this in order to create a cut file for Silhouette. And we will get there when I get to that layout. All right, let's dive into this page. So I'm using the Vicki Boutin Storyteller collection for all of this. And I just wanted to show, I've already pulled the papers out, but this is just so beautiful. It's a little dark and moody and saturated for me, but I wanted to tell some dark, moody, and more saturated stories than maybe I had in the past. And this is definitely one of those that I'm getting to today. So I've been having fun with this collection that the layout about the Never Say Never that use the Storyteller collection as well. Okay, so let's have the sketch here for reference. And then let's start pulling the stuff off. So what I did is I opened up the sketch in Photoshop and I started typing my story. Pretty quickly, I changed the font and the font size and the spacing to my preference, just so that I would know that my journaling was going to fit in the box. So of course there's always a default font that we start with, but I changed it to Remington Noiseless because that's my favorite font, and I always, as you probably noticed in my pages, almost all of my typewritten layouts have the same font. It's actually even in the same size and the same spacing because I'm a little bit of a nerd like that. But I love the look of it, and I wanted to make sure I switched that right away. And so I typed all my journaling, edited it as I went, proofread it again, make sure I caught any weirdness because, when you're writing, you end up adding extra words or it doesn't make sense. And then I turned off all the layers and I printed this out. Now, I understand I have a large format printer. I was able to just shove my cardstock in there and it print out for me. But you do have options of scaling the layout down to 8.5 by 11 in order to make it work for you. You can do that directly in your printer. Start typing here, and then when it prints out, it's going to print out on a narrower page. And then you can design the rest of the page from that. Just make sure it will automatically scale it. Your journaling may end up a little bit higher on the page too, so you could add something down here. You can also, of course, print it out and then adhere it or do journaling strips. You may already be familiar with a lot of the different ways of getting your hybrid journaling on the page, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware that there are options when you do want to tell these bigger things. You also, in this case, could have not done this little L here and just done a block at the bottom or a column along the side in order to make that a little bit easier to print out, and then just cut it out and adhere it to your page. So you can think about that flexibility. You also could have done it in 2 sections if you really wanted to keep that L as part of the design. All right, jumping in here to the design, I very quickly saw the division between the bottom and the top. And because I was printing the journaling, I knew the bottom would be white. And the photo I selected here is of a Japanese flowering cherry that happened to be in my front yard of my house in Maryland. This was a teeny tiny 720 square foot house that had basically 1 bedroom that used to be 2 bedrooms, super tiny, but it was right by the metro. And this story, I will give you the high level version, is about how we bought it at the height of the housing bubble, and that didn't quite end well for us. It was kind of one of the biggest disappointments of my life, and there's of course a lot of reasons why that happened. But I wasn't ready to tell the story with the pictures of the house. Even looking at the pictures on Zillow today of what it looks like, and looking back at my older pictures, it was just a lot to look at. But I did find a lot of photos that I took of the yard, of the trees, the garden. We had the flowering cherry in the middle, like the middle of the front yard. It was so beautiful. And then there was a Japanese maple, and then several bushes. We had lavender. It was a very beautifully landscaped yard, and that was probably one of my favorite features of it. It made up for a lot of defaults in the house itself. And so choosing this photo really made sense, and it's kind of a nice contrast to some of the heavier journaling. And so I always like to look for kind of surrogate type of photos here. We don't have to be literal. This is a related photo. It makes me much happier and is much more connected to kind of the direction I'm going. I'm going to end up using this piece for my title, Embrace the Journey, because that's what we all have to do. There are ups and downs in life. All right, let's get here to the pattern paper. So this is going to be that top portion here. And then I noticed that the sketch had stitching, and there's no way I was going to sew on camera. If I can't get my audio right on camera, there's no way I'm going to sew on camera. So I'm going to use washi tape here to kind of mark that border. In this layout, I'm going to use washi tape, and then you'll see in the next one for that kind of transition piece, I'm going to use, I'll just leave it a surprise. I'm going to use kind of a fun little extra. All right, so let's go ahead and adhere this down. I'm using my Kikuyo dot liner. This is the long one. I had been using the regular one for so many years, and I bought this because it's more economical, but I have to say I don't really like it. I find it much harder to drag. It's much louder. It's not as smooth, and I've had it kind of crinkle up a little bit and do weird things a couple times already. So I did purchase a couple refills of this. I'll of course use it up. Adhesive gets used, but I can't say I would buy it again, and I'm going to continue with the regular size dot liner. Just my personal feedback. All right. I have this. And then one of the reasons why I went ahead and cut all my papers here tonight is because I'm definitely like a multiple measurer, not even like measure twice, cut once, but like let's measure 6 times to make sure. So I wanted to make sure the dimensions worked out. This washi tape is, I'm just gonna have to go with it. The gold foil is kind of coming off on itself. We're gonna go for just stressed look, but that's kind of disappointing. This was also from the Storyteller collection. And a little bit maybe lack of stickiness because it's probably sticking to the gold foil. So yeah, washi tape's a little hit or miss sometimes, it seems like. But we'll go for the distressed gold foil look. All right. So that's gonna stick. Cool. I've gotten my paper a little I'm usually a standing scrapper, so I need to figure out how to do these lives while standing. I have to change my table situation, I think. So this might end up getting trimmed off over here because this paper seems to be just a teeny tiny bit short. So we will trim that edge off in the very, very end. All right, next we have, I wasn't sure if I wanted to map my photo, but then when I saw the sizing, I could have made the photo larger. But I really did like kind of the boldness and the emphasis on this black mat here. So there was a piece of black pattern paper in the collection, and I was just going to go ahead and use that. Several of you mentioned that you do really like this collection. I'm curious what other collections you're loving these days. Not that I need to buy more things, but it's always good to share the best stuff. All right, and then we'll go ahead and do the photo because we know it's going to end up here in the center. All right. Okay, so next I have these butterfly embellishments. I thought I might kind of do like that. And then there's some butterflies in this sticker too. So I thought I might just use one more butterfly for like rule of thirds with 3 butterflies total. And then I was also eyeing some of these chipboard items. All right, so let's go ahead and get these out. Oh, Donna loves Vicki Boutin color study as well. Yeah, Vicki Boutin's just rocking it these days so much. Okay. So I know I'm going to use this Embrace the Journey title. I'm going to pop this up on some foam tape. And I want the butterfly to be a little bit above. Really like just the kind of V-shaped line of sight here with these items. I'm trying to get this a little bit above the black and then centered in this space here. Okay. And this one, ooh, do I want to pop that up a little bit? Yeah, well, let's pop that up too. So I have some foam tape here. Ooh. This is 1/16 of an inch foam tape. I find the 1/8 of an inch to be just too chunky and not my preference. All right, and then I was thinking about this orange butterfly here. You pop that. Ooh. Let's see. Underneath. There. Ooh, I like that. Okay. And then the title piece here. What do we do? This is pretty sticky. You gotta watch out. But the backing seems to come off pretty easily. This is Gina K foam tape, but made by ThermoWeb. All right, let's get this here overlapping. There. All right, and then I wanted to do this little kind of label sticker here. I thought we could put that like right here. And then, so I was kind of got that from this label sticker here, but it just didn't quite fit on that one. And then I had this little like these Tim Holtz like white and black phrase stickers, and there's one that says "Let It Go," and so that definitely connects to the story. Leave that on there. All right, now we have these little, they're little like heart kind of, not quite enamel dots because they're chipboard. And I noticed that there were 3 little dots here. So I'm actually going to do one on this side just because that's the way that spacing feels good for me. And then that one came off its backing. That's never good. All right, I'm going to do a little surgery here on my little dot, which is going to go there, but need some liquid adhesive. So this, like, Martha Stewart doesn't even make craft supplies at Michael's anymore, but this glue pen has lasted forever, and I just used it yesterday, and it still works quite well. All right, and then hopefully this one will come off the backing. There we go. Okay. There. Cute. You know, I think that's all I want to do with it. You know, as you saw in my examples, I like to keep it pretty straightforward. You know, we've got the story done. It feels like if I had done nothing else but put, you know, the pattern papers in the photo, it could have been a complete page. Now, it doesn't mean we want it to be a complete page because we're scrapbookers and we like to play with fun things. But, you know, once you have that story done, anything else you do is really extra. And so I feel really good about this one, and I'm so happy that this story has been told. All right, any questions about this particular page before I move on to the next one? All right, some things out of the way here. Okay. You guys are all being very polite. Thank you. Okay. So, actually, looking at my schedule here, before we jump in to the next one, I want to show you something and maybe do a giveaway. So, this is Spark Magazine. Spark is one of the awesome benefits our members receive. Now, they don't receive the physical magazine in the mail, but you do have an option of purchasing that as an add-on and having it shipped to your home. But I just wanted to showcase how awesome it is to have beautiful sketches with tons of examples in a magazine every other month inside of our community. Our creative team does an amazing job at working with our sketches, working with our challenges. The one for this issue was botanicals, and they just did some amazing things. They're making more double page spreads this year because we have a lot of requests for those. We call it sketch remix, taking two of our previous sketches and remixing them into a new page. And so I just wanted to showcase Spark because I'm so proud of it. These are issues 85 and 86, and on the first Wednesday of May, the issue 87 will be released. And tonight I wanted to give away two 2-month memberships to our watchers. And to do that, let's do guess a number for the first one. So I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100, and please do don't say anything yet until I say go. When I say go, I will ask you to guess, and the first person to guess the closest number will be one of our winners of a 2-month membership. And I'm doing a 2-month membership because we do these creative journeys, and May is the start of our storytelling journey. And that's why I wanted to talk about story tonight and using longer journaling. We do these 2-month periods because a month just isn't long enough to really dive into a topic. And a quarter sometimes just seems so long. It's sometimes by the end of a quarter, you can kind of even forget what your objective was. 2 months seems to be the sweet spot to build momentum, to have deeper conversations, and really get into something in whatever way works best for you. And if it doesn't resonate with you, we're actually onto something pretty quickly. So 2 months is a wonderful sweet spot. So I'm going to say the word, and when I do that, guess a number between 1 and 100, and the closest one will get a 2-month membership. So go. And now I have to wait for the delay because of the live streaming delay, but we will see who wins the closest number. All right. Okay, we have one that's really close. Give it a couple more seconds here. I know there's a delay. All right. I want to make sure everyone gets in here. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to put my thumbs up so I know when I'm at that point. And I see it on the screen. Okay, so it is, I believe it's Nina and Foz. She had 85 and the number was 87 because we have issue 87 coming out. Okay, next one. Next winner of a 2-month membership. I would like you to guess a color of the regular colors. First person to guess the color that I'm thinking of, colors of the rainbow. Good, and this is the color of our next issue. Okay, go. Oop, my viewfinder is. You guys guess while I fix that. Michelle, yellow, awesome. Right. Oh, you know what it is? It thinks there's a face. The way my camera works is that it will, if you show it a face, it's gonna try to identify a face. But typically when I'm doing the live streams on here, I don't have my face on there, so you don't have to see that. So that's what it was doing. It was seeing the face. All right. So those of you who won, if you would email help@simplescrapper.com, we can get you all set up. All right. Thanks for participating. I love giveaways. Okay. All right. Next sketch. I was excited about this one because it was a little intimidating for me. This type of like scallop bracket shape is not something I naturally gravitate towards. Also, sometimes 3 photos can be a little bit challenging, so I appreciate having a sketch. I do a lot of grids, and so this just really felt like a little bit out of my comfort zone. I will say I'm probably not going to put my title over the journaling. Now, if you do like really scripty journaling and the journaling's more from you, and I've certainly made pages with words and things over the journaling, definitely do it. But in this case, I want the journaling to be read and understood, so I'm probably not going to put the title on top of it. So the construction of this one is a little bit different here because I did not have, so let's just say, here's the journaling piece. Did the same thing, opened up Photoshop, typed it out, printed it on cardstock, and then I went ahead and trimmed it because I noticed in the sketch how the journaling part was overlaying the background. Now you didn't have to do it that way, but I thought that might be a fun little twist here. And then I needed a scallop, but I didn't want to use a scallop. I wasn't going to punch anything. So I decided to use the branding strip off of this piece of paper. And I'm going to, it's perforated, so hopefully that won't be a big of a deal. This is actually, these 2 papers are from American Crafts Chap from many years ago. And then now we're left with this 12 by 12 cardstock, which I'm actually going to use as the background. I'm going to use the orange side because I like that one the least. And that's because this piece of pattern paper, which is representing the green here, I didn't have a full sheet. So if I'd had a full sheet, I just would have overlaid this on the full sheet. And of course I could measure and washi tape it up or just adhere it together. But I want to make it a little bit easier on myself. And I want to start with a 12 by 12 canvas. So I'm just going to start by adhering this onto the orange, which we're not going to see. And then that's going to go there. And so that's just a way to make it a little bit easier. It's cardstock I probably was never going to use. It was time to declutter it anyway. This is my last hurrah for the chap collection. And then we're going to actually tuck the branding strip underneath here. So we won't even see that perforated edge because it's going to be tucked underneath as our little nice border. All right, and then, well, we'll get there when we get there. All right, Judy asked, did you use regular Photoshop or PSC? I used regular Photoshop. I am not a whiz at Photoshop by any means, but I do appreciate some of the different controls of text boxes in Photoshop, and especially in terms of resizing. I find it a little more flexible and easy to use. Then anything else? Alyssa, you're a little bit behind on that giveaway there. And then I believe there was a question earlier about what size font do you use? So this is actually 9.38 and the line spacing is 14.06. And how that happened is that I had created a canvas that was bigger than my page and I ended up shrinking it down for various sizes. And I liked it so much, I just have those numbers written down and I just type them in manually when I'm doing my journaling. So yes, 9.38. All right, let's get adhering this background before we get into some of the fun things. Okay. Ooh, this branding strip would have been really pretty too. Ooh, that's very tempting. I'm gonna go ahead and take that off because I like it. I do like that stripe as well. So if you wanted to be precious about keeping the paper, you could trim this a little bit more. But I'm ready to let go of some of my stash. It's definitely time. See, this one's so noisy. The other one doesn't make any noise at all. So like, let's compare this. Okay, 1, 2. I mean, maybe you couldn't hear that, but I feel like this one is much quieter. Light that up so we don't see any orange anywhere. Perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and when I'm doing the tape on the back of my journaling, I'm not going to go all the way to the edge because I want to slide that underneath, and I'll go ahead and put the adhesive on the back of the branding strip. I probably didn't need to be as thorough on that one, these corners. But I've had enough layouts like fall apart that I'm kind of super into being thorough with my adhesive these days. And I did the wrong one. Look at that. Flip it upside down. No, I did that wrong. So, oopsie, don't do what I do. Do what I say, not what I do. So I got the backwards messed up. So there's your comedy for the rest of the night. We will just adhere gently on this side. Covering up the orange. And then, now that there's adhesive there, I don't actually have to do anything. I can just tuck that underneath. And you can make that as wide or as skinny as you want. I really like a nice skinny little border. I think the skinny kind of emphasizes the layers a little bit more. There we go. So pretty. Love that so much. Oh, I miss these colors. Okay, now let's talk about the little matted scallopy thingy. I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. I actually even looked in the Silhouette store. Should I cut something out? Should I try to cut something by hand? Do I have anything I could trace? I don't really have that type of shape. I'm not sure how, I mean, this was a digital page to start with, so I'm sure she just clipped it. So she may have found something else that started with that. But what I did is I turned off all the layers except this yellow one. I exported it as a transparent PNG, and I brought that PNG into the Silhouette Design Studio. So you can do that really with any layer in a template. Even if you don't use these templates for digital scrapbooking, you can turn off all the layers but the one that you want to use in Silhouette, export it as a PNG, and then it automatically drew the tracing lines around it. So super handy. I'm so glad that, you know, it was really easy in the end. I didn't need to buy anything. So honestly, we basically have a wealth of almost pre-designed cut files for you inside of our template library. All right, so let's kind of line this up where we want this. And it didn't do a really good job of cutting here, but I noticed that my photo is probably going to overlay that anyway. So let's play with the photos here and make sure we know where they're going to go. So this was a story of, we went to Denver and Boulder in October of 2016. And this was a day we went to Rocky Mountain National Park. It was, you know, it was a nice fun day. And the reason we were going is because it was elk mating season. And so we wanted to go see the elk all doing their dancing and trying to attract one another. And so you can see I ended up sizing this down a little bit more. I kind of just eyeballed it what I thought it should be, and it was a little bit smaller, but no big deal. We can still adjust it how we want it. Probably do something like that. I like, if I took the time to have the scallop here. Maybe this one over. Some more. Maybe like that. So I'm going to move this over just a hair. Or we have an option here, we could probably even overlap the photos if we wanted to, but don't have to. All right, we're gonna do something like that. Let's go ahead and get this adhered down, and then we'll continue making our decisions. And then let's get our photos down. So I put the adhesive on the back of my photo, and I'm just kind of basically resting it on there. One of the reasons I love this adhesive is that it's not permanent instantly. It makes it really, really nice so that you don't have to necessarily make your decisions right away. All right, I'm gonna have to give up probably with that. Oops. I did press that down a bit. All right, I'll do this like this, I think. I'm okay with that. And okay, I want to make sure. Okay, perfect. I think I didn't finish my thought there. I like this adhesive because it's not permanent right away. And so it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. So many times I'll actually take my ruler, and let's just say I wanted to reposition this. I'll put my ruler underneath, slide it up, and then kind of lift everything off in a gentle way and reposition it. I've used so many adhesives over the year that once you stick it down, it's not going anywhere. And I like having a little bit of, you know, flex to it. Okay, I'm just trying to eyeball this to get the spacing between those photos pretty much even. All right, there we go. I like how this little, the little scallopy thing gives you a little bit of national park vibes, like kind of a, you know, that retro logo they use. All right, now let's work on title and embellishing. I'm gonna go ahead and do my title before I do any additional embellishing because I know it's gonna take up some space. So I think I'm going to do this word adventure down here, and then I'm going to put elk above it here as the rest of the title. All right. I love using these word stickers as part of my titles, just because it can be kind of frustrating to play with the letters and get them in the same place. If you use a word as part of it, it allows you to make a decision. Oh, my family is home. I need to shut my door here. Hey, family, I'm on a live stream, so I'm shutting the door. All right. My daughter just returned from Friday night softball practice. Okay. I like how that T just kind of supports the journaling there. That's straight. I think that's straight. Maybe I'll actually do more. No, I like that there. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. This is kind of a wonky cork thicker. It's kind of a comic. All right, so we're gonna put this down here. You know, my other title choice was just like RMNP, Rocky Mountain National Park Adventure, and I actually think that would have fit. Let me try that real quick. We'll often do that. Okay. Park. Let's see. We can even, yeah. Oh, maybe not without going on the photo. I don't really want to go on the photo on this one. Well, okay. Twist my arm. Okay, we're definitely going to need some sort of embellishment in here. That's for certain. Cute. I can't see that on the live stream. If I can't see that, you guys can't see that. If we do like this. Maybe that's the way to do that. Does that look better? I often will, these letters are not showing up. So I will often take pictures of my layouts to see if the title's showing up. Oh, good. Okay. So. All right, we're gonna use a word in a title I never thought I would use. So this is actually called the elk rut because they're in heat. They're mating season. So we're gonna use that as our title because it stands out better, and I want to be able to see the title. There we go. That's cute. Okay. Now let's play with some other embellishments a little bit. So I pulled out some chipboard pieces, some die cuts, and some enamel dots. And let's jump back to the sketch to see where we are. All right. Put that over here. I really don't, I mean, not that thickers have great adhesive anyway. I don't really like push until I've totally committed. I thought arrows might be good for, ooh, currently watching. That That's totally applicable here. Down here. Yeah, that might work. I didn't expect to pick one so quickly there. Let's see what else we can find. Seriously fabulous moment. I kind of would like to bring some yellow over. Super excited about this. Explore and discover. There we go. That's perfect. Okay, so we have explore and discover. We have a little arrow. Maybe something down here. Probably do like enamel dots here, here, and here. I think I need one more. Enjoy the wild. Actually, I think I'm going to do the enamel dots here, here, and here. I don't know if I like having both of those. You can do enjoy the wild up here. No. Move that up so you guys can see that better. Okay, I feel pretty committed with my orange. This would be an arrow, orange arrow. And I feel pretty committed with this enjoy the wild one. Yeah, thanks for letting me know, Wendy. Just not so sure about that one up there. Let's look at our enamel dots and see what choices we have. I'm thinking it's probably going to need to be something in the orange family. Definitely not sparkly. Let's see. These are pretty close. I'm a big fan of like pretty tiny enamel dots. But maybe this is a time to use bigger ones. Let's be bolder here. Okay. There we go. All right. Does it need anything else? It's a pretty simple page. I like it. I love this particular branding strip. And this is kind of, I know there's many of you out there that are taking Chamil's half and half class. It's kind of a similar idea here of, you know, this was 6 inches and this was 6 inches. So like playing with that dividing line in the middle of the page. Yeah, I think we're going to call that done. You know, the only thing, I think if you think this was too simple, you probably could layer some more papers underneath this area to bring that together. Oh, it's that embellishment in the middle here. That's what's missing. I don't think... It's going to mess up our triangle. So maybe we won't do that embellishment in the middle, but that's what was kind of missing. Maybe if I had like a like a die cut piece. Let's see here. Do I have a die cut piece? I looked and I don't have any, did not have an elk. But something like, I'm not sure, it's not really super visible. Gold doesn't quite fit. Green, no. Slow down and enjoy life right now. Something like that might work. Do we think that brings it together? That's actually a printed one. I think that really like connects it all together. So I'm gonna put that on some foam tape, and then there we go. I was not expecting that, but I think that is that clincher piece that kind of brings it all together. Now you want to make sure, like it worked out in these photos, you want to make sure you're not covering up an important part of the photos. But yeah, I like that. I like how that came out. That was like, something felt off and that was it. That it needed something there in the middle and something kind of just pop it up a bit. All right, let's review. We have our 2 pages. Two sketches, 2 pages. You guys can't see all that, so we'll just review. We've got this one. This just like, it took me more than an hour to type this journaling, but then maybe 20 minutes to kind of pick out some things, and you guys obviously saw how long it took to assemble. So really, when you sit down and do this, so much of the work is done when you sit down and type that journaling, and it just makes it so worth it. And then this one, this was so like more feminine, more moody. This one definitely more outdoor, more adventure. And I like how it came out in the end, particularly that circle. Just kind of had ignored that rectangle there, and I think that circle just really brought it all together in the end. So, all right. And any last questions for me about process, about what we do at Simple Scrapper? I wanted to host a live stream because we are having open crop all weekend. Many of our awesome crop hosts are actually here in the chat tonight. They volunteer their time to make sure that our members are well taken care of inside of our Zoom crop room. Our entire membership is based on the Mighty Networks platform, and we use Zoom for our crops. So we're completely off Facebook because, for many reasons, but we wanted you to have a distraction-free environment, a place to go that feels safe and cozy, away from the distractions of so many other things, that you can just hang out and get to know fellow scrapbookers. So we have open crop time all weekend, including continuing on tonight, and time scheduled throughout Saturday and Sunday. So I hope you have a wonderful International Scrapbook Day weekend, and thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. Take care.